Maria stood frozen in her cramped kitchen, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the silence as she gripped a bank statement that felt like a betrayal carved in ink. The numbers didn't lie, though she wished they did: payments for a sleek convertible, designer handbags, a penthouse lease in a city 2 hours from their sleepy town of Willow Creek. For years, Maria, a retired nurse, had poured her life's savings into her daughter Sophia's charity, believing every dollar went to soup kitchens, school supplies for kids, and blankets for the homeless. Sophia's passionate pitches had painted vivid pictures of lives changed, families fed, children smiling with new backpacks, elderly folks wrapped in warmth. Maria had glowed with pride, seeing her daughter carry forward the legacy of care she'd devoted her life to as a nurse. But now, the truth was undeniable. The charity was a sham, a glittering facade for Sophia's extravagant lifestyle. The realization hit like a wave, pulling Maria under. She sank into the worn wooden chair where she'd raised Sophia alone, through years of double shifts at the hospital, skipped vacations, and second-hand clothes so her daughter could have new ones. Every sacrifice stung anew. The nights she'd come home bone-tired, the dreams she'd buried to give Sophia a better life. Her daughter, her only family, had taken her trust and twisted it into a weapon. Maria's hands shook, not with anger but with a deep, hollow ache. She wanted to call Sophia, to scream, to demand answers, but her voice felt trapped, smothered by betrayal. Instead, a quiet resolve took root. No more money. No more lies. She would channel her love for helping others into something real, something Sophia couldn't touch. The next morning, Maria stood in an overgrown lot behind the community center, her gray hair tied back, a shovel in her calloused hands. She'd bought the plot with the last of her savings, a defiant stand against her daughter's deception. The land was a mess, tangled weeds, broken bottles, and rusted cans, but Maria saw possibility: rows of tomatoes, beans climbing trellises, sunflowers nodding in the breeze. A community garden, a place where neighbors could grow food, share stories, and find solace. As she dug into the earth, the first clod of dirt felt like a release, a small act of rebellion against the pain. This garden would be her healing, her way of giving without strings, without deceit. Word spread quickly through Willow Creek. By noon, Mr. Carter, a wiry widower with a limp from an old war injury, arrived with a rusty wheelbarrow and a bag of carrot seeds. "Heard you're fixing this eyesore," he said, his gruff voice softened by kind eyes. The Lopez kids, 3 teenagers usually glued to their phones, wandered over, curious, and ended up pulling weeds with surprising enthusiasm. Mrs. Patel, a shy widow who rarely left her house, brought a tray of samosas, her hands trembling as she offered them to the volunteers. Each day, more people came, some with tools, others with seedlings, all with a shared hunger for connection. The garden took shape: raised beds framed with salvaged wood, a trellis for peas, a bench where people could sit and talk. Maria moved among them, her nurse's instinct reawakened. She listened to Mr. Carter's stories of his late wife, taught the Lopez kids how to space seeds, and coaxed Mrs. Patel into sharing her knowledge of herbs. The garden wasn't just growing plants, it was growing trust, laughter, and hope, but Sophia was watching. Maria should have known her daughter wouldn't fade quietly. Sophia had always been magnetic, a charmer who could talk anyone into anything. As a child, she'd sold lemonade for $1 a cup. As a teenager, she'd persuaded teachers to bend deadlines. Now that charm had darkened into manipulation. The first sign of trouble was subtle but sharp. A local hardware store had promised lumber for more raised beds, but the owner called Maria, apologetic, saying Sophia had convinced him the garden was a front for some shady scheme. Maria's stomach twisted, but she brushed it off, focusing on the garden. Then, a batch of seedlings donated by a nursery vanished after Sophia was seen lingering near their shop. Whispers began to circulate, doubts seeded by Sophia's silver tongue, questioning Maria's motives, her sanity, her heart. Maria kept working, her hands in the dirt, her resolve unshaken. But the sabotage grew bolder. One evening, as she locked up the community center, she found a note slipped under the door, written in Sophia's familiar scrawl, "Stop this nonsense or I will." Maria's blood ran cold. She recognized the looping letters from birthday cards and school notes, now twisted into a threat. She tucked the note into her pocket, telling no one, but sleep eluded her that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how her daughter had become a stranger. The real blow came at 2 a.m. a week later. Maria's phone buzzed, Mr. Carter's voice tight with urgency. "Maria, get to the garden. It's bad." She threw on a coat and ran, her heart pounding as she reached the lot. The sight stopped her cold, tomato plants ripped from the ground, trellises smashed to splinters, soil scattered across the sidewalk like a wound. In the moonlight, she caught a glimpse of a figure slipping into the alley, a flash of a red scarf, the same one Sophia had worn since high school, fluttering like a taunt. Maria's knees buckled. Her own daughter, desperate to break her, had attacked the one thing giving her purpose. Maria didn't confront Sophia. She couldn't bear to. Instead, she called the volunteers, and by sunrise, they were there, Mr. Carter with his wheelbarrow, the Lopez kids with trash bags, Mrs. Patel with a thermos of chai. They worked in silence at first, the destruction too raw to speak of. But as they replanted and rebuilt, the air filled with murmurs, then stories, then laughter. The Lopez kids admitted they'd overheard Sophia at a cafe, bragging about putting her mom in her place. Mrs. Patel, trembling, revealed she'd caught Sophia on her security camera, crowbar in hand, sneaking through the alley. Mr. Carter, his jaw set, said he'd seen Sophia's car circling the lot the night before. The pieces came together, and the community's shock turned to resolve. They wouldn't let Sophia win. Sophia's attacks didn't stop. Tools went missing, water hoses were slashed, fertilizer bags were emptied into the street. Each act felt personal, a knife twisted by the daughter Maria had raised alone. The town began to whisper, not just about the garden but about Sophia's charity. Rumors swirled, donations unaccounted for, events that never happened, checks cashed in Sophia's name. Maria tried to ignore it, focusing on the garden, but the whispers grew louder, and Sophia's shadow loomed larger. One evening, as Maria watered the zucchini, a stranger approached, a young woman with sharp eyes and a notebook. "I'm Lena from the Willow Creek Gazette," she said. "I've been digging into your daughter's charity. People are talking." Maria froze, her watering can trembling. She didn't want this, a public spectacle, her daughter's shame laid bare. But Lena was persistent, her questions gentle but relentless. "I found records," she said. "Payments for a penthouse, a car, vacations. None of it went to the community. I think you deserve to know." Maria nodded, her throat tight, and Lena promised to keep her name out of it. But the truth was out, and it was spreading. The next day, Lena's article hit the front page, local charity exposed as fraud, community garden targeted. It detailed Sophia's deception, the fake soup kitchens, the non-existent coat drives, the money funneled into her lavish life. It praised Maria's garden, calling it a beacon of hope in the face of betrayal. The town erupted. People came from neighboring counties, bringing compost, tools, even hand-painted signs that read Maria's Garden, grown with love. The garden flourished, more vibrant than before, with rows of peppers, marigolds, and sunflowers glowing under the summer sun. Maria moved through it all, her hands in the dirt, her heart lighter with each neighbor's smile. She taught kids to prune basil, helped Mr. Carter plant a rosebush for his late wife, and sat with Mrs. Patel under the trellis, listening to her talk about her childhood in India. Sophia's downfall was swift and brutal. The article sparked outrage, and her carefully crafted image unraveled. Creditors called, sponsors pulled out, and her social media accounts, once filled with polished photos of charity work, were flooded with accusations. She tried to fight back, posting tearful videos claiming she was misunderstood, but the evidence was undeniable: bank records, receipts, Mrs. Patel's security footage. Sophia fled town, her red scarf abandoned in the penthouse she could no longer afford. Maria never spoke of her, not out of anger but because she didn't need to. The garden spoke for her. Every ripe tomato she handed to a neighbor, every seed she pressed into a child's palm, was a victory over Sophia's lies. The garden became a haven, not just for Maria but for everyone. Mr. Carter found purpose tending the roses, his grief softening with each bloom. The Lopez kids started a gardening club, their phones forgotten as they competed to grow the biggest pumpkin. Mrs. Patel, once reclusive, hosted weekly tea parties under the trellis, her laughter mingling with the scent of jasmine. People came from miles away, drawn by the story of a nurse who'd been betrayed but chose to build instead of break. Maria never sought the spotlight, but it found her. A local school named a scholarship after her, and the town council declared the garden a protected community space. Each evening, as the sun dipped low, Maria stood among the rows, her hands stained with earth, her heart full. She'd lost a daughter but gained a family, one rooted in trust, grown with care, and stronger than any lie could ever tear down. The garden wasn't just earth, it was her heart, unbroken, thriving, and alive, a testament to the power of giving without expecting anything in return.